Welcome to the VGC podcast. My name is Christopher Knowles, and today we are back. We're answering more comments and questions that you guys, the players, have sent in or commented on Instagram and TikTok and things like that. And now today I'm sitting here going to do the best I can to answer those questions and hopefully set you on your way to improve whatever you want to improve. So, first things first, if you have a teammate or a friend that you think can really benefit from a show like this, or something we answer or talk about in this podcast can be helpful to them, then share the show with them, share the episode with them, because the more we get the word out about this show, the more people we can help, and the better the volleyball community as a whole can grow and develop. So we're going to dive straight in with the first question of the day. First question is, what about lower back pain? How do you deal with it or stop it? So, as far as lower back pain, I think this is probably one of the top 5 biggest and most common injuries among volleyball players outside of like the shoulder and your knees. But I would say really what it comes down to as far as lower back pain is prevention, strength, and recovery, right? So what we want to be doing with our lower back and just our back in general in the first place is preventing any injuries. So preventing injuries is going to come from really stretching and a little bit of strengthening it as well. So for as far as prevention with stretching, we want to be doing things like cat-cows, and where we're bending our T-spine and things like that. And we want to also do maybe hamstring stretches that release tension on our lower back. But the biggest thing that I've seen that really helps is dead hangs, where you literally just kind of hang on a pull-up bar and you're holding it and you just let your entire body release the tension, and that really pulls on your back, which really is stretching it out for you. So the biggest thing is, one, prevention, which is stretching hamstrings and your back. And then the second thing is strengthening your back, which is doing things like hinge movements and stability movements, where you're working out and you have to hold yourself stable while you're doing it. That really helps the get good, strong tension in your back that can hold yourself up for long periods of time. Let's say for like a long tournament or a long practice, you're still able to go the long distance because of the work that you did. So strengthening your back is a huge thing. And then recovery is also the third thing as well. So recovery like ice, but then also just straight resting it, like not doing anything that involves your back for a full day, right? Like, and then even when you're sitting a lot, maybe in class, or you're sitting working a ton, sitting is actually not the greatest thing for our body, and especially our back and lower back. So if you've been sitting for a long period of time, get up, stretch, do some movements, get the blood flowing again, so you don't have problems in the future because you sat in a classroom for too long or whatever it might be. So if you want to solve your lower back pain, then it comes through prevention, strength, and recovery. Prevention through stretching, strengthening through working out, and recovering through resting. And so the second question that we have is, what should my mindset and thought process be through my approach and when I'm hitting? So that is actually a really good question, and this is something that I think I really developed super early on, of like needing to get myself in the right headspace. I think it was especially in high school, of like getting myself in the right thought process so that I'm focusing on the correct things when I'm going into my approach, and I can be the most effective in my approach, which leads into a great hit. And I think the two biggest things that I found for it is finding the two things that really pulls your approach together and your hit together, but then also having the right self-talk going into your approach and your swing. And so the two things, the first one in the two things of finding what works for you. So for me personally, what I've found is when I'm swinging my arms super far back and I'm making a great approach, or I'm making an aggressive approach, those two things really lead me into having a great approach, which leads into a great swing, right? Because if I don't really know the two solid things that really get me in the most efficient approach that I can, then it's going to be very inconsistent, because if you don't know what works, then it's hard to pinpoint that every single time, and so it's going to be inconsistent. So if you want a more consistent approach. Find the 1 or 2 or even 3 things max that actually work and are the big things that hold your approach together, and think about them before you make your approach. So before I make my approach, as the ball is like going into the setter's hand, I think about, hey, I got to get my arms back and I got to approach aggressive, right? Really quick, really fast, doesn't require a lot of thought, but really helps me get in that mentality of what I need to be doing in order to make a great approach. But then also the second thing is also the self-talk of what you're saying, maybe even before the play starts or as you're hitting, is what are you kind of telling yourself that leads you into what happens when you're hitting, right? A lot of players are like, oh, I can't swing into the block, or I can't swing angle because they blocked me last time. And then whatever you tell your mind is going to focus on that thing. So if you tell yourself, oh, I can't swing into the block, chances are you're thinking about not swinging into the block, and it's a little bit weird. So you are focusing on swinging into the block, and that's what you do, right? So fixing your self-talk and how you communicate with yourself before you swing and as you're swinging really can change the outcome. So instead of, I can't swing into the block right now because I got blocked last time, it should be, I'm going to hit around the block this time. I'm going to hit line instead of angle this time. I'm going to tip it over, right? Because now you're focused on the actual thing you want to execute rather than the thing you're trying to avoid, right? So changing that mental shift into, I want to do this thing instead of I'm trying to get away and avoid this thing, right? Focusing on what you're trying to execute. So essentially what it all ties into is an unstoppable mindset leads to an unstoppable swing, right? So if you believe that you're unstoppable and you know that you have the 2 or 3 things that you really have determined are the things that really pull your approach together, and you're thinking about all the ways you're going to score rather than the ways you can't score, that's going to lead to an unstoppable swing because you started with an unstoppable mindset. So those are my 2 biggest things for approaching and hitting. Moving into the third question is any tips for high school volleyball? With my perspective on high school volleyball, how I was kind of like told and brought up to approach high school volleyball is, realistically, high school is meant to be your time to work on the things that need improvement, right? For guys, and I think really for girls as well, high school isn't the thing that college coaches watch, right? So during the high school season, you could have like not the best season, but improve on 10 different things. And that will really translate into your club season, which is where you get the most access and the most eyeballs on your game from college coaches and things like that. So the way I approached high school volleyball was like work on the things that I'm bad at. And then when that translates into my overall game in club, then I become a better overall player, right? So when you're going into high school, use that practice time to work on what you're weakest at, what you're the worst at, and maybe not the strongest parts of your game. So then when you bring those up to good or great levels and you add those to what you're already good and great at, then that's how you truly become a better overall player. So if you work on what you're bad at in high school, you'll be a better overall player in club, right? So utilize that time that you have in a high school if you practice every day to get better at the things that need improvement, so that when you are being looked at by college coaches and you are getting those eyeballs and the access to a broader array of people that you're playing against and more opportunities to play on higher stages, the work that you put in high school is going to make you that better overall player in your club season. So that is the podcast episode for this week. I know it's a lot shorter than it usually is, but something I'm working towards personally is making these a lot shorter and a lot more digestible to where you don't have to listen to a 40-minute podcast to get the answer you want. I try to now distill it down to the main points I want to make, the main ideas that I want to get across to you, the players, so that you can take it, get the feedback, get the information, and work to implement it into your game as fast as possible. So these podcast episodes are going to be a little bit shorter moving forward because I wanted to distill them down to the main ideas that I really hope to get across to you guys as the players so you can implement them and act on them faster and with more efficiency. And it's just a lot easier for you guys to listen to it and to remember, okay, I got to do these 3 things. I got to do prevention, strength, and recovery. And I have to focus on my mindset and what works for me when it goes into my approach at hitting, and also using the time I have in high school to get better for club, right? So those are the main points I want to get across today, and that's why these episodes are going to be a lot shorter now. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you got to the end and you got some value out of it, that just shows that you're the type of player that's really invested in trying to improve yourself. So jump in the VGC community. We are a community of almost 300 members now that are working to grow and to learn from each other so we can get faster lessons, and the faster we get the lessons and learn from them, the faster we can implement them, which means the faster we implement them, the faster we get better. The faster you get better, the faster you see results. So if you're a player that really is investing in yourself, which you clearly are because you get to the end of this episode, then jump in the VGC community and we'll see you on the inside. And we thank you for listening to these episodes, and always grow together.